and welcome to the spring quarter. First of all, welcome back from spring break. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Ash, and I'm going to be your TA. So I'm TAing for sections 1 and 2, which meet on Monday and on Wednesday right after lecture. So the Monday is 10 to 10:50, the Wednesday is 10 to 10:50. This video in particular is for folks that are in the Monday section, because this week we will not be meeting at our normal time, although in future weeks we will be meeting. Mondays 10 to 10:50, Cruce 11:06. Because I'm not going to be in the classroom with you for section this week, I wanted to do a little short video just to provide some introductory kind of orientation type things, and walk you through the syllabus very briefly. We're going to go over this in greater detail when we meet next week, so during week 2. Also, for anyone who would like to, you're welcome to join us for the section on Wednesday if you want to connect in person the first week. You're also welcome to come to my office hours, which are on Friday, and I'll walk you through how to find those and so forth. But for those of you who are in the Monday section, this is going to serve as your first section meeting, so we're just going to be doing that one remotely, but from here on out it'll be in person in Cruce 11:06. So welcome to the spring. Many of you are return students, and so you've had me as a TA in the past. For those of you who haven't, I'm a 5th year PhD student in the Performance Studies graduate group, and the majority of my research focuses on sexual and reproductive surveillance. I'll talk more about that as we move through the quarter in case anyone has any questions or is interested in pursuing a project that's related to that. So first I just want to walk you through the syllabus, which you can find on our Canvas site. So if you log into Canvas, you go to CDM 151. There should be a link right there on the home page that will send you to a PDF of the syllabus. You can also kind of access all of those materials in other places on the Canvas site. So places you're going to want to keep an eye on are the home page that has any kind of links, a calendar of what's due when, and you can also go under the assignment tab and you'll be able to see each of our weekly assignments and then the assignments related to your term project. So for now, I'm just going to walk through the PDF of the syllabus. If you have any questions, feel free to send me an email. You're also welcome to ask them next week when you come to section. Okay, first and foremost, we went over the times that we're meeting. The professor for our course is Tim Lenoir. For those of you who have had him in the past, you know he's great, super knowledgeable, knows this stuff forward and backward. And so the lectures are going to be really packed full of all of this interesting material. It's going to reflect the readings, the viewings, and so you'll go into your lecture Monday, Wednesday morning, and then once a week, of course, you'll come to your section meetings with either myself or Avital, who is our other TA, who's also excellent. And we're going to kind of spend that time in the section meetings unpacking the readings, the viewings, and the lecture material, kind of tying them all together. So it really is a place not just for me to talk at you, but for you to be asking questions, doing small group work. And so as such, we're requiring attendance at both the lecture and the sections, but we will be taking attendance in the section meeting. So please be sure to make it to class. If you're not able to, you can always send us an email and let us know what's going on, and we can work with you on that. But in general, definitely plan to be there each week. So first thing on the syllabus, you'll see the information related to my office hours. There's a document, a Google Doc, that you'll just click on if you'd like to sign up for an office hour meeting with me. That'll take you right to a spreadsheet. You can fill out your name for the time that you'd like to meet with me, and then there's a Zoom link associated with that meeting. So should be pretty seamless. If you have any questions, let me know. All the office hour meetings are going to be remote this quarter. Just tends to be easier for me and for other folks. So please, don't be a stranger. I'm here. I'm your teacher, so I'm here to help. So if you'd like to connect in office hours, please do. You're welcome to read through the course description. It's important to know that any reading or viewing that's assigned will be provided to you. So most of them are already linked on the Canvas site under readings, and those are broken out by week. You'll also see slides from the lecture for that week. Those are generally posted right after, in the day after the lecture is given. So you're welcome to use that as a point of reference. And when it comes to viewings, those will generally be sent out about a week ahead of time. So the idea and the expectation is that you'll have the readings and the viewings done before you come to class on the date that they're assigned. That just gives us a lot to work with in terms of material and ideas to kick around, and it makes everything more generative and interesting. So I would encourage you to do that if you are able. In general, with the readings, if you're not able to get through, of course, the preference would be for you to closely read everything, take notes, come in with questions. If you're not able to do that, at least give it a cursory scroll, do a little highlighting for parts that are interesting to you or things that you have questions about. And then we can kind of answer any questions you have or talk through the material as we meet in discussion section. In terms of course requirements, there are a few different items that you should be aware of. First, you've got 5 weekly responses. These are really short, about 150 to 200 words. You'll see them listed under the assignments tab on the Canvas site. In general, it's going to be asking you to respond to a brief prompt that we've written that's related to the material that we're covering that week. So take a peek, try to be thoughtful in your response, and so that'll be for the first 5 weeks. So week 1 through 5, due on Fridays. Next, after we wrap up the 5 weekly responses, we're going to move into really working in earnest on this big quarter-long project that we're going to be doing in this class. I'll speak a little bit more later on in the video about what that project entails, but the idea is really that this will be something that you're working on throughout the entire quarter. We'll give you a lot of support in sections and with the assignments on kind of getting you to your end product for your quarter project. So you've got a draft of that final paper or project that'll be due mid-quarter, and then your final will be due at the very end of the class on June 8th at noon. Everything will be uploaded to Canvas, as I'm sure you do for almost all of your classes at this point. And then finally, the last 10% of your grade will be for attendance and participation. And again, I talked about that already. That's going to be Are You At section is going to be your kind of baseline. So say that'll be 5% of that total 10%. Are you present, physically present? And then the other 5% will have to do with how much you're engaging with your classmates and participating actively in discussion. Let me know if you have any questions about any of those things. We've got a little list here of the academic code of conduct. Essentially, show up, do your best, don't plagiarize, don't use ChatGPT to write your paper. We'll get more into that later. But in general, when students have questions around plagiarism and citations, my rule of thumb is just cite everything. So whether you're borrowing directly, like a quote from a journal article or an academic paper, if you're quoting it directly, that's pretty straightforward. You need to cite it. But even if you're reading something and it's really informing how you're approaching your work, go ahead and cite it. That's, kind of we might call that a citational politics, right? It's like doing right by your colleagues. So if you're really borrowing in part or heavily from someone else's ideas, that's great. That's encouraged. Absolutely. That's collaboration within academia. That's wonderful. Just make sure that you're giving them credit for their ideas and their work and their thoughts, just like you would want someone to give you credit for your contributions. So when in doubt, cite. If you have any questions on that, let me know. So as we start to get into the actual weekly assignments, you'll see, as I noted, week 1, you've got a response due on Friday at 5 p.m. in Canvas. That's just your first weekly response. That's really kind of like a, who are you? How'd you end up in this class? What's your major? What's your interest here? Get to know you a little bit. That's just, mostly for us as TAs to understand who are our students and how can we best support you. If you're coming from outside of CDM, if you're coming from inside of CDM, cool, awesome. We love CDM majors. If you're coming from outside of CDM, that can be where some of the more interesting, weird, cool, exciting new contributions come from in terms of our students, because you're coming from disciplines that are outside of our scope. And so you have something to add that we as teachers can't bring. So I would encourage you to bring in thinking, work, theory, etc. from your home discipline or other courses that you've taken. Bring those into this class. It makes it more interesting. So all are welcome here. You'll see that each week there are assigned readings and often viewings. In general, the readings are relatively short. Some of them are longer, but if they're longer, you can go ahead and do a little bit more of a deep skim. Try to do as much of the reading as you can. And then the films, they often speak directly to the content that we're addressing. We've found that using films and television series and so forth, it really enriches the class, because oftentimes fiction, science fiction is it's at least on par and often ahead of what's actually happening in the material world. And so there's a lot that we can learn in terms of thought experiments, but also kind of trying to understand what's coming in the future. So definitely make sure you do that. For the first week, we are assigning a film by David Cronenberg from 1983. It's called Videodrome. Heads up in terms of content. This film it's so weird. It's such a weird one. We'll talk about David Cronenberg, why we include his work. He is closely related to some of the theorists that we're going to be working with, in this case, Marshall McLuhan. And the film, although it's just one of the weirdest movies you're ever going to see, it provides a really cool conversation starter for talking about what we're getting into this week. So content warning on it. It definitely deals with themes of suicidality, violence, including sexual violence. So if for any reason that's not comfortable for you to watch, that's no problem at all. Just let me know. I can always provide an alternative viewing or give you a cliff notes, or if it just is content-wise too much, you can even look up a Wikipedia article so that you can kind of get some of the takeaway from the film without having to watch it, if that's something that would be triggering, etc. for you. We'll do our best to provide content warnings anytime we can, but certainly a number of the films that we're looking at in this course do deal with violence, sometimes sexualized violence, and so forth. So I'll give you a heads up when some of that stuff's coming up, but just know that that's sort of worked into a lot of the viewings. Okay, week 1. So week 2, we're going to move into some of the kind of earlier, when we're starting to kind of transition to from early to narrative film. There's some stuff that we want to touch on. So you'll be looking at some old films from the early 20th century. We'll be talking about those in class. So it's not necessary to watch the entirety of each film. That's just to kind of give you a taste of what's happening during the time and how it's playing into the politics and the development of theory around that time, which is very formative for what we're talking about here in terms of media and so forth. And so week 2 kind of takes us through the 1930s and looks at, not only film, but also what's happening in advertising and how is the spectator as a subject, us, people watching the films, how is that being cultivated and created, both consciously and unconsciously. So that's really interesting. You're going to see also a film called Battleship Potemkin. We're going to pay special attention to the Odessa Steppe sequence, which will allow us to talk through some of the fundamentals of film and how film is used in the political sphere. Moving into week 3, we're going to start working some with the Frankfurt School guys, Walter Benjamin, and so forth. We're going to watch a Fritz Lang film called Metropolis. Super interesting. We'll talk more about that as we get there. We'll be touching on some work by Guy Debord, Horkheimer, and Adorno. Again, a lot of these guys are coming out of the Frankfurt School, so we'll talk about the Frankfurt School and how that was formative in terms of media theory, and even the way that we receive and understand media, film, etc. today. We'll start to kind of touch on the idea there of what's the difference between an original and a copy. More to come on that. Again, each Friday there's a response due until week 5. As we move into week 4, we're going to be looking at the concept of modernism versus postmodernism and see how that shows up in films. In this case, we're going to watch Blade Runner, which is a classic film, great film. And then we're going to start to think through the idea of the cyborg as a figure. So that's a really fun week. I enjoy that week. Moving into week 5, we're going to start to look at some of the work by other folks who are thinking about cybernetics, neural networks, and cyborgs, particularly the work of Donna Haraway, Catherine Hales. We'll be watching a film, a 2015 film called Ex Machina, that week, and it is, I feel like I'm saying this about every film. It's a great film. That's a great film. Many of you will have seen it before. We're also going to touch on some of the work by Lacan in terms of thinking through different developmental stages, kind of phases of becoming a subject, and try to understand how those things are tied to power and control and media and the law and so forth. Then we're going to be moving into a week in week 6 on the post-human, another great film called Autofac, which is interestingly produced by Amazon and is very much a commentary on Amazon's sort of business model and the impacts that it's had on the planet and people. We'll also be thinking through brain-machine interfacing, getting into a little bit more hard science here, like neuroscience, cognitive science stuff. There's lots to say there. Moving into week 7, we're going to be starting to think on Foucault's idea of the panopticon. We're also going to read a very, very short piece by Deleuze, which I think does a really good job of summarizing not only the Foucault, but kind of what comes after the Foucault. And we're going to start to think about surveillance capitalism, which is an idea that's set forward by Shoshana Zuboff. Who's a great thinker and someone that I think can speak to sort of the contemporary moment. What does it mean to be a human today? And we'll be taking a look into an episode of Black Mirror, which is a series that we're very fond of. The Friday of that week, we're going to have the draft of your final project due. Again, I'll talk more about that in a minute. Moving into week 8, we're going to continue our conversation on surveillance capitalism and really start to think about how data is used, how profiling is done online, and how that impacts not only what it is that we're seeing online, but actually is a way that our desire is cultivated in particular kinds of directions, right? Like you go online, Instagram or TikTok or whatever is feeding you these videos, these reels, and all of a sudden, you're getting a lot of content around like dog collars, and then you think to yourself, like, I really need a new dog collar. I mean, I have a normal one, but what about this one with a microchip, right? And so it's a way that our purchasing habits, the way that we live our life, the things that we desire is being cultivated by this sort of algorithm that's promoting this consumerism, right? So we're going to really dig into what does that mean for us. Then moving into week 9, we're going to really get into the thing that's all over the news right now, which is ChatGPT and AIs in general. We're going to think through not just ambient AIs like your Alexa and so forth, but we're going to start to think through these, much more complicated artificial intelligence machines, how they work, how they're changing life, how they're changing academia, how they're changing work. And we'll get to play a little bit with ChatGPT and figure out what's going on there. There are a lot of links under that week where you can check out these different platforms and see what they do. So we encourage you to do that. And then as we're moving towards the very, very, very end of the class, we're going to revisit this idea of ambient AI, and we're going to start to look through this film called AlphaGo, which talks about the sort of launching of these kind of now earlier stage AIs, and it was sort of the moment that the world realized what AI could do. And it's a great film, and there's more that has happened since then, because AlphaGo was 2017, so that's 6 years ago now. So we'll get into what does all of this mean for the future of work, for the future of labor, thought, writing, poetry, music, art, and then finally, we'll close out the class by having your final project or paper due on June 8th. So I want to give a short little snippet on what we're expecting for the weekly assignments. I touched on it a little bit. We'll go ahead and post a prompt on Monday of each week, and the expectation is that you'll do the readings and the viewings, and you'll use that material as well as what you take in lecture and discussion section to write a thoughtful, well-worded 150 to 200 word response. This is not something that we're going to ask you to spend hours on. It should not take you more than an hour to write your response, and can certainly take substantially less than that. So those are just due each week, and they're relatively straightforward in terms of how we grade. Now, when it comes into the final paper, I want to talk a little bit more about what that looks like. So I'm going to talk about the final project or paper, and then I'm going to go backwards and talk about what we're looking for the draft. So I'm reading here from the syllabus, the guidelines for the final paper or project. As the final assignment for this course, you can choose to submit either a research paper, video project, or alternative media project. For a final paper or project, you are asked to apply the media theoretic approaches developed in this course to the role of digital and computational media in the transformation of us, human beings. You can also consider its role in shaping identity and social life in the present and as we're moving in the future. We'd like you to write either a research paper, create a video project, or craft an alternative media project, addressing one of the following prompts. So you can choose which of these prompts you'd like to take on, and you can also choose whether you're going to take that on in terms of in paper or a video or some sort of alternative project, which I can talk more about. So the first prompt is new social media. New social media, our new world of constantly connected wireless personal devices and the coming Internet of Things, have been celebrated as sources of democratization, liberation, and even personal enhancement. On the other hand, some critics raise concern about the ways these new computational media can be seen as tools for tracking behavior, shaping sentiment, molding identities, and silently shadowing us in a surveillance society. Describe some, 1 to 3, of these new media technologies and weigh whether we should be concerned or optimistic about the futures they enable. For the second option, you're going to do a collaboration with ChatGPT. We say ChatGPT is here and is radically changing the nature of academic discourse and work at large. For this option, we ask you to embark on a collaborative project with ChatGPT, where you work with the technology to craft a paper or project related to the themes of the course. This will require a detailed write-up of the different prompts and parameters you apply to ChatGPT or a similar AI, the outcomes produced, and a rigorous academic analysis of the benefits and/or problems with the outputs you receive. If you choose this option, you should expect to engage in several rounds of prompting with ChatGPT and should be prepared to get into the weeds with the AI itself. We'll talk more about what that project will look like, and it'll be something that we'll touch on in an ongoing way throughout the course. The third is kind of an open-ended option. So any topic other than the prompts listed above is also encouraged, provided that your essay or media project addresses issues of digital media in relation to transformations of the human, identity, and sociality. If you choose this option, talk with your TA about your topic to make sure that it meets the requirements for the final assignment. Now, you can choose any of those 3 options, and if you choose to write up a paper, for your final, we're expecting an original research paper of approximately 10 pages, which is about 3,000 words, that draws upon theoretical work of the course and includes references and a bibliography. You are welcome to include images and graphs, etc., where appropriate. If you choose to do a final video project, in the form of a video essay, a documentary-style video, or a narrative fictional film, we ask that it be approximately 10 minutes or comfortably longer in length. Your film should draw upon media clips and/or images you either create yourself or draw from your research constructed in support of an argument that you are advancing in your video. You should include references and a bibliography. You are welcome and encouraged to work in groups of 2 to 3, and it's okay to work with students in other sections. If you choose this option, all group members should submit the exact same draft and the exact same final, and should include all the names and the sections of each group member in both the paper or like in the document that you attach and also in the comment section. Now, there is also another way that you can go, which is to choose an alternative media project. And if you would like to do some other kind of mode that hasn't been described, is not a video project and is not a written essay, you are going to work with me, your TA, to develop the parameters for your final project. Examples from previous classes of projects that students have done that fall into this category are podcasts, video games, app prototypes, and other kinds of multimedia projects. In any case, you are encouraged to work in groups of 2 to 3. Again, you're welcome to work with students in other sections. And same thing, all group members should submit the exact same final and draft, and you should include the names of all group members and their section numbers when you upload it. You are certainly welcome to use just sources that are included on our syllabus, but of course you are also welcome to go and do outside research. We ask that you look at the parameters described on, I think this is like page 8 or 9 of the syllabus, the last page, and just make sure that you're citing everything properly. We are open to you using really any citational practice. It could be MLA, it could be Chicago, it could be APA, whatever fits best with your home discipline. You're welcome to use that as long as it's consistent throughout the paper, right? So if you're using APA, use that throughout the whole paper. Don't switch it up and then go Chicago for a few lines. So just as long as it's consistent, you should be good to go. So that is the final project. It's something that is going to require that you work on it really from about week 5 on. So it's about a 5-week project. You're not going to have any other assignments during that time. And so the idea is really that we're going to be giving you enough time in terms of like not assigning other work aside from readings and viewings to really go into your work. So now to backtrack, in terms of the draft, if you're doing a paper for your final, for the draft, we're looking for a 2 to 3 page preview of what you're planning to do. You should include a thesis, which is good, nice to make bold in your document, a content outline, and a list of some of the materials that you'll be drawing on. If you're doing a video project, then we are looking for a detailed 1 to 2 page outline, including thesis, description of the nature of your project, and a materials list. We're also going to ask for a storyboard as part of your draft. All of this is outlined in the syllabus. Finally, if you're doing some sort of an alternative media project, the requirement is pretty similar as for a media project, a 1 to 2 page outline that includes a thesis and a description, as well as a materials list and a storyboard of the project. If you have any questions about any of this, we are going to be going through it again in person. I just wanted to kind of provide like a brief orientation to the course so that you had a sense of what was coming up and had a sense of what questions you might ask or you might have about it. You know how to contact me. My contact information is in the syllabus and on the homepage of the course. I really am looking forward to this class. It's one of the classes I've taught for 5 years now, and every quarter is awesome, and the readings are intense in some cases, and the material is complex and interesting and very, very, very much relevant to our day-to-day. So the idea for me, at least in this class, and I think I speak for the whole teaching team, is our hope is that you walk away from this class a more sort of conscious consumer of media, right? Because we're all immersed in it. It's everywhere. We interface with it. I mean, even watching this video, you're interfacing with media, right? So the idea is just that we are able to develop a more complex, complicating understanding of media and how it is related to and constitutes humans. More to come on this. I'm really looking forward to it. Let me know if you have any questions. Otherwise, I will plan to see you all a week from Monday, from tomorrow. In week 2, I think that we're looking at, I think that's April 10th. At 10 a.m. in Cruise 1106. And we will jump into some of the content. All right. Take care, everyone. Hope your spring break was great.